Okay, our guest today brings with him a beautiful energy and over 40 years of experience in coaching the mental game of golf, business, and life. A best-selling author, over a million copies worldwide, and renowned expert in performance psychology. He's worked with major champions, many other top golf professionals, and amateurs at every level of the game. He holds the distinction of coaching both a man in Vijay Singh and a woman in Christy Kerr to #1 in the world golf ranking. Golf Digest magazine has also honored him in their list of top mental game experts in the world. He's a pro at getting people, quote unquote, out of their own way. We'll talk about that. But without further ado, please welcome to the show the author of Zen Golf, among other books, Dr. Joe Parent. Thanks for slowing down with us, man.
Hi, Mitch.
Such a pleasure. All right.
My pleasure. Slowing down is what it's all about.
Oh, isn't that so true? Isn't that so true? Well, why don't we start out with a very general question? Dr. Joe, I just want to know, I feel like mindfulness means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I'm wondering, what does mindfulness mean to you?
Well, I've been trained in practicing and teaching mindfulness. See the gray hair, for 40 years.
Wow.
I first taught in 1975. So I guess that makes it 45. So it's the word mindfulness is very interesting. It is mind. Your mind is full. A lot of people think mindfulness means clearing your mind and making it blank. But your mind is full. What is your mind full of? Your mind is full of your experience in the present moment. Internal awareness, external awareness. What you're feeling, thinking, physically presenting, and what you're experiencing in your perceptual environment. So it is moment to moment, and it's all in the present moment. Now, unless you have a time machine, and you don't have a time machine in your backyard, do you, Nick?
I don't.
You could check, but probably you don't, which means that the location of your body in space is always here. The location of your body in time is always now. But your mind is a time machine, and it can spend most of the time in the past or the future or traveling someplace else in the present. So mindfulness means that your body and mind are synchronized in the present moment, in the here and now. Now, and mindfulness is two things. It is a state of being, the state of being mindful, and the practice. Those are two different things. The state of being mindful is what I described, a state of presence, that you are fully there with your experience, not separated from it. Because, in golf, when I'm teaching golf, golfers say, should I think about my swing? And I say, well, if you're thinking about it, then you're thinking, not swinging. So it's like you're separate from your experience. If you're self-conscious of it, if you're thinking about what you're experiencing, mindfulness is being fully present with that experience and aware that that is where your mind is. You see, in the Buddhist tradition, mindfulness has two aspects. One is the quality of focusing on the present moment. The other is a monitoring function. So I even teach it as mindful awareness. The mindfulness is the attention to detail of experience. The awareness is a background monitor that says, am I present or am I not? Now, really, it can only acknowledge, yes, I'm present, because if you're not, it means you're off in a daydream. Okay, so the state of mindfulness is that state of presence. But the practice of mindfulness has to do with the fact that the mind does wander into daydreams of the past and the future. And the practice is that when you wake up from that daydream, at that moment, you acknowledge it with a smile, and a sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe and you say, "Oh, there I go again," in a light way, not a beating yourself up way.
Right.
And bring your mind back. What do you bring it back to? You bring it back to what you were doing, what the object of your attention was. And we can use different anchors for our mindfulness. We can use internal anchors like the sensation of filling and emptying the breath, filling us and emptying out of us. We can use other physical sensations. We can use perception and objects of perception. But whatever it is that we choose to pay attention to, that's what we bring our mind back to when we wander. Now, some people may say, well, I thought the practice of mindfulness was bringing your mind back to the present moment. I have some good news for you. And it's a special way that I teach and that my teachers taught me. And that is, you're already present. People think, this is the really good news, people think that distraction is the default mode. No, presence is the default mode. Distraction is an overlay on top of that. So when this daydream pops, there you are, you're already present. So you don't have to, it's like in the morning, you have a dream and you wake up from it. You don't think, oh, that was a dream, I should wake up now. You're already awake. That's how you know the contrast that it was a dream. So you have that moment of contrast when your daydream pops and you go, oh.
Right.
And in that oh moment, you are simply present without a lot of commentary about it. That's why you take that moment, you smile, and come back to what you were paying attention to. So to come all the way back around, mindfulness is that sense of presence. The practice of mindfulness is catching yourself when you daydream and bringing yourself back to what you were paying attention to. You're already back to the present as soon as you wake up from that. Now, let's go all the way back to ancient India.
Ooh, let's do it.
The word that we now translate as mindfulness is sati, S-A-T-I. Well, it wasn't spelled S-A-T-I. They didn't have English letters in ancient India, but it was pronounced sati.
Yeah.
And if you were to, and it's sometimes translated formally as recollection. In other words, remembering. In an ordinary language, if you were speaking with somebody in an ordinary way, it would mean remembering what you were doing. It's that simple. So mindfulness is so simple. It is simply remembering what you were doing and returning to that when your mind has wandered to something else. So instead of recollection, I like to translate it with a little hyphen in there after the R-E, recollection. That you collect yourself back. You recollect yourself.
Love it.
To being synchronized in the present moment. And I know that I can explain to people, everybody who's listening has had this experience. I can almost guarantee it. Of a lack of mindfulness, of not remembering what you were doing.
Yeah.
You were headed for the kitchen to get something or to do something. And on the way, you got distracted by something else. You took care of it. You then continued on your way to the kitchen. You walk in and you go, okay, why did I come in here?
What was I doing again?
I can't remember what, I had something in mind to come in here for, and I don't remember what it was. That's, your mind has been emptied of what you were doing. So mindful is that you have that continuity of awareness that when you're done with what you were doing and you return to your intention, you know what it was. Sorry for the long-winded explanation,
I love that.
but that is what mindfulness is to me.
Man, that was what a great in-depth explanation. When I asked that question, I was maybe expecting a couple of sentences. Mindfulness is this, but you went way in depth for our listeners. And some beautiful things you said in there. I just want to highlight a couple of things that you said. The first being that the point of mindfulness is not to empty the mind. That's a I feel like a huge misconception out there is that
Agreed.
people think that mindfulness means you sit down, you meditate or whatever, and you're just trying to get the thoughts out of your mind. They're not going to go away. The thoughts are like clouds passing in the sky.
Exactly.
You just have to stay with them, and as you said, be fully there with your experience, which I thought was beautiful.
And to do that, you change your point of identification.
Mm.
Usually we identify with the clouds, but your
Mm-hmm.
mind is the sky. You have thoughts, but you are not your thoughts.
Right.
It's the difference between watching a parade and then getting caught and taken away, swept away in the parade.
Right.
So you understand that if we identify with the clouds, we get caught up in them, and it's like you're in a cloud and you can't see anything else other than your own thoughts. But if you can have a sense of humor about your own thoughts and understand that they're appearances arising in your mind, like clouds appearing in the sky, maybe they're smaller and faster, like a bird going across the sky. Maybe they're bigger and noisier, like a jet plane going right across the sky in front of you. But whatever form and size they take, your mind is the sky. Your mind is a formless, sizeless, colorless container that provides the space for all of these thoughts to arise. Have a sense of humor about them. Don't take them so seriously, then you won't take yourself so seriously. Then you won't take what's going on so seriously, so that every interaction becomes a life and death struggle. Oh, it's too exhausting.
By the way, Dr. Joe, love it. How applicable is that? And I have read your book, Zen Golf, and I know you mentioned this in there, and you just mentioned it here, is the effect of humor and integrating humor into mindfulness in the practice. But I feel like, man, in golf, and I found myself doing this as well. I'm out there and I mishit a shot. I want to like hit myself over the head with my immediately default to self-criticism, being hard on the self. And I feel like integrating humor into a situation like that, not taking yourself so seriously, I would think would produce better results. But I'll let you speak to your findings there.
Oh, I think that's absolutely the case. And in fact, it's all based on expectation.
Ooh.
And the reason this connects with life and golf, and there's an old saying in golf, golf is a lot like life, it's just golf is a little more complicated.
I love it.
The idea is that we have this strong attachment to needing things to come out a particular way, whether it's on the golf course, or it's in business, or it's on our relationships. We have this vision of who we think we're supposed to be and what the world is supposed to be and how it's supposed to be the way we want it to be. And darn if the world doesn't cooperate all that much.
Right.
I don't know if you found that, but I found the world doesn't really cooperate with our version of things all that much. So what I tell golfers, and I think this is one of the most helpful things, in fact, you mentioned Christy Kerr, and I worked with her and helped her get to #1 in the world. And I think the one teaching that made the difference was to point out that in golf, we aim at a spot, but we play to an area. Give yourself room. And if you become too perfectionist and need things to come out, whether it's golf or life, and need things to come out a very specific way, and you don't have a lot of tolerance for ambiguity or variation, you're going to be an unhappy person a lot of the time, because there's a lot of room for possibilities that happen that really don't match up with what you expect. So if you can change that level of expectation and give more room for yourself on the golf course, be realistic. I don't remember seeing your name on the leaderboard at a PGA tournament. Mitch, correct me if I'm wrong. So
You were
why
correct.
would you have the expectation that you're going to hit a shot like a PGA Tour player? It's unrealistic. Have a sense of humor and understand your dispersion pattern, your area of how things are going to turn out is way bigger than a professional golfer's. So for high handicappers, I actually have them change. Instead of beating themselves up by having to put so many big numbers down on the scorecard, change your scoring method. Count up how many shots you hit that you really liked.
Ooh, I like that.
And the more you get, the better your overall score is going to be. So somebody has said, well, but then, you're going to, pretty soon as you get better, you're just going to have lots and lots and lots that you like. Well, that's not how human beings are. Your standard's going to go up for the quality of the shot that you really like. So what you want is your expectations to be just a tiny bit higher than your outcomes. And that keeps you going forward and wanting to grow and get better.
Right. A healthy challenge,
But
so to speak.
that is only a tremendous amount of frustration. I even have an equation, E minus R equals F. Expectation, the difference between your expectations and your result is your level of frustration. So you got two ways to deal with that. Either improve your results or lower your expectations.
Simple as that.
A little of both is probably the best thing to do.
Gotcha. Oh man, I love that. I'm going to write down that calculation and use that moving forward without a doubt, just lowering the expectations a little bit. Dr. Joe, on that note, I know you also talk about setting a personal par for the day as a golfer, according to your own specific handicap, the conditions of the course, etc. The reason behind that, you say, is that less than 1% of golfers ever finish a round at par or better. Yet here we are going out on the course and comparing ourselves to this unrealistic benchmark.
That's right. Par in golf it's actually a manufactured concept.
Right.
If it didn't exist at all, it wouldn't change the game. I was just talking to one of my players, a competitive junior, who was always measuring himself against par. Now he's a really good golfer and he can shoot par, but basically, I asked him. I said, put a par in my hand. No, you can't do that. What part of the golf club is a par? What part of the golf ball is a par? What part of the tee, the grass, the hole? What part of that is a par? It doesn't exist. It's a concept. And this is something that's taught very much in Buddhism, that we confuse the concepts with the reality. It would be like going to a restaurant and buying the menu and never getting the meal. The menu is the concept. It's labels that point you towards the experience, where you want the experience. So when we talk about par or any conceptual overlay, that's part of our expectations. So again, we want the expectations to be realistic. Par is what an excellent golfer, one of the top 1%, would shoot in a round if they didn't make any big mistakes.
Right.
and they often do. So what we want to do is say, what's my game? Okay, well, if I typically shoot 90 instead of 72, that's 18 over the par on the scorecard. Well, guess what? What's realistic for me is one shot higher than that number on each hole. So what says par 3 on the card is really a par 4. What says 4 is really a 5. What says 5 is really a 6. And I took a high handicapper out at a business, I do a lot of corporate golf events.
Right.
And this guy was a very high handicapper. In fact, on the hole we were playing, it was a par 5, but he got 2 strokes on that hole. It was a par 7 for him.
Right.
Well, he has scuffled the ball a few times. And the person we're playing with says, are you struggling? And he said, no, I got 3 more to get up there. I've only hit it 4 times. I have three
Right.
more to go. And so it
Oh,
gave him this allowance to be easier on himself. And that's really what we need. We
mm,
set our standards for ourselves. You know, if we were talking to a friend, it would
mm,
be really easy to give them a break. But we give ourselves a really hard time, and
mm.
we have a hard time giving ourselves a break. And I guess we got that message from our parents that we have to be hard on ourselves to learn and to improve, but it's just not true. You have to give yourself room to grow. You have to give yourself room to grow. If you beat yourself up every time that something doesn't quite work out, you're just going to be afraid of trying the next time. It doesn't help. So in golf, I have a chapter in Zen Golf called Fire Your Evil Caddy.
Right.
And I wanted to mention it because people talk to themselves very negatively. They point out, it's easy to point out what we do wrong. We find things that are wrong, and we dwell on what we do wrong. But imagine hanging out with somebody that all they do is point out what you do wrong. That would not be
Horrible.
How long do you want to hang out with that person? But guess
Oh,
what? We bring that kind of evil friend, that evil twin along with us all wherever we go.
right.
Leave them home. Leave them home. Instead, flip it and say, you know what? I'm happy with what I did in that situation. Usually we ignore that and only focus on what we did wrong. Start finding the things that you do well. Appreciate the things that you do well. Oh my God, how about I dried that spoon really well before I put it into the drawer? That was great. That's great. We don't get that kind of congratulations for doing the dishes or
Right.
cleaning up or putting things away. We should take some satisfaction in the ordinary things that we do and give ourselves a break when things don't go so well.
Oh, I love all of that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that in alignment with the concept of having self-compassion
Mm-hmm.
and really just opening up, showing ourselves love, not taking away that self-critic or that evil caddy, as you say in your book, and that experience of oneness, like, me scuffing this ball into the bushes is not so unique to me. It doesn't mean I'm a bad golfer. It means it's just me at my own level, in my experience, having this human experience of hitting the ball into the bush.
I think that that's absolutely the case, and it's not just in golf; it's in everything we do. And keep this in mind:
Mm-hmm.
we identify with the results of our actions, and then project that back into our being.
Oh,
So you aren't just a bad golfer; you're a bad person. And I
oh,
experience this all the time working with golf pros because it's their career.
right.
And if you don't perform well in your career, I had a player, and we sorted out that every time he was 5 thoughts away from being a bad person.
Oh, man.
I messed up this hole, so I messed up the round, so I missed the cut in the tournament, so I didn't make any money, so I'm a bad father, husband, person.
Wow.
Well, five thoughts away from I can't support my family for one bad golf shot. So,
Right.
but we shake our heads and think, yeah, that's pretty extreme. It isn't. It
Mm-hmm.
isn't. We mess something up and we beat ourselves up, and the implication is anybody who would make that mistake can't be very smart, can't be very talented, can't be very thoughtful, can't be very good person. Wow. Take it easy. Slow. What's your slogan? Slow down.
Slow down, man.
Slow down that rapid fire projection into how good a person you are over every little thing that happens.
Right. Oh man, that is powerful. I love it. Okay, just moving along here. We could talk about that all day, eliminating the self-critic, self-compassion. But golf has got to be one of the most mentally challenging games out there. you're on your own, you're dealing with natural distractions, requires you to focus over 4.5, 5 hours. It's a long round. And you talk about the saying, and we mentioned this in the introduction, getting out of your own way. And you cite thoughts as being that obstacle that is in the way.
Yeah.
Dr. Joe, I'm wondering, how do we get out of our own way, not only in a golf context, but in a life context, to achieve the success fulfillment that we want in our lives?
Well, I think one of the interesting parts is, again, recognizing that what we're thinking isn't necessarily how things are. They're the stories that we're telling ourselves.
Mm.
And in fact, I was listening as you were describing golf, and I was thinking, well, that's a very interesting description of it, but that's your story about it. When you said 4.5 hours is a long time to concentrate, I was walking with Jack Nicklaus. I had the rare privilege of walking with him, watching one of his kids play golf many years ago.
Wow.
And we talked about it. I said, what do you think about on the golf course? And he said, well, first of all, concentrating for 4.5 hours is not only boring, it's counterproductive.
Mm.
In between shots, I don't think about golf.
Mm.
Aha, this is the greatest golfer in the world, maybe in the history of the game. Right. I don't think about golf. And if you think about the maybe minute and a half that you're going to take, and that's a long time. That's planning the shot and getting everything ready and processing what happened afterwards. If you just take that and you take, let's say you had 90 shots, that's 145 minutes. See, that's half the time. And in fact, usually what we're really concentrating on is during those 5 or 10 seconds just before, during, and after the swing.
Mm.
So we're talking about 10 seconds, even if it's 90 times.
Right.
That's not very long. You only have to concentrate for 5 or 10 minutes during that 4.5 hours.
That's a good point.
Enjoy the scenery. It's going to be a beautiful place. Enjoy the breeze. Enjoy the company. Talk about something else. And then get into your bubble when it's time to play. Now, getting out of your own way means recognizing that that's your story. You talked about it takes this long. It's frustrating. You're all on your own. Well, yes, you're on your own, but is that really what makes it so hard? You read a book on your own. That doesn't make it hard.
Right.
What makes it hard is you comparing yourself to your expectations. Otherwise, you're whacking a ball around and you hit it, you find it, you hit it again. If you lose it, you drop another one and you go and you play around and you have some fun.
Right.
But if you put perfectionism and restrictions and all sorts of challenges on top of it, yeah. Now, here's the story of why golf is so frustrating.
Okay.
Is somebody throwing that ball at you at 90 or 100 miles an hour? No. Okay. And is somebody trying to distract you? Have their hands in your face while you're trying to shoot? No.
Trying to hit you? No.
Is there a goalie in front of the hole? No.
Nope.
No. So really, in fact, the people you're playing against try to be polite and quiet for you to concentrate.
Right.
So everything is set up for you to perform your best. But again, you've got as someone described it, an ill-shaped stick trying to hit a ball the distance of 4 football fields in just 4 shots, and it doesn't go into a very straight line. It's a dispersion pattern. It's an area. So we have all these expectations, and we measure ourselves against them, and we hit. I'll give you another one. People are better than they are on the course, and they're worse than they think they are on the range. They're better than they think they are on the golf course, and they're worse than they think they are on the range.
And why is that?
On the range, how many 7-irons do you hit in a row? maybe a dozen.
Right.
You pick out the one or two that went well, and you go, yeah, that's my game.
Right.
You don't
Oh,
get to pick one or two out of a dozen when you're on the golf course. You only get to hit one. And
right.
the one that you hit probably isn't as bad as you think. And you forgot about the ones that were even worse that you hit on the range. You only focused on the one or two good ones. So you're measuring yourself against something that's unrealistic. Why are you measuring a single shot from the side of a hill in thick grass compared to a dozen shots on a beautiful flat where you
Right.
get to tee up the ball the way you want it to? Unrealistic expectation.
Yeah.
Okay, so to get yourself out of your own way, first you have to understand how you are in your own way. Mistaken ideas, habitual patterns, habits that you have that really don't have any basis in current reality. They're probably from the deep past. Maybe many, many, many years ago, and you just keep doing them. But if you were aware of them as propelling you, suddenly they lose their power over you. Did you ever see the movie The Wizard of Oz?
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Okay. So they've gotten to Oz, and they're standing in the palace, and there's this big green head shouting at them, going, oh, and they're all terrified.
Yeah.
And then the dog pulls the curtain back, and they see that it's a little man with a microphone amplifying it and flipping the light switches.
Right.
The big green head is still there. In fact, it gets louder and bigger, but they're not scared anymore. Do you know why? They know that it's just blah, 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 and it was a little guy pulling the levers.
Right.
If you know that it's a little guy in there pulling the levers, and you don't have to listen, it loses its power over you. It loses its power over you.
Oh, I love that. And yeah, taking the power away from those limiting thoughts, limiting beliefs. Let's go down that tangent a little bit more, Dr. Joe. So we talk about the concept of being enough a lot on the show. And it seems as though in society today, especially with high performers, many achieve, and they never feel like fulfilled or like they're enough. You call this, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you call this in your book the poverty mentality, and talk about the concept of basic goodness, which I absolutely loved. And further, you talk about how with basic goodness, we're able to attain unconditional confidence as opposed to the other two types of confidence, which I'll let you talk about. By connecting with this basic goodness. What I'm curious about is how can we go about realizing the basic goodness in ourselves, attain that unconditional confidence, both in golf and in life?
Okay, so we've already talked a little bit about what you just described as poverty mentality, and that is focusing on what we do wrong rather than what we do right, and seeing ourselves as not complete, seeing ourselves as something that's fundamentally wrong with us. It goes back to what I talked about of the misunderstanding of mindfulness, that we think that our ordinary, our basic state of being is that of confusion, and that we have to find clarity. Our basic state of being is being screwed up, and we have to find sanity. Right. But in fact, it's the other way around. And what you tune into as basic goodness is what you would call a fundamental life-affirming energy that's really the essence of all of us. It's our essence, it's our nature. And we all can tune into that, because who doesn't appreciate a spectacular sunset? Who doesn't appreciate a beautiful rose, a beautiful flower? We have the capacity to connect with beauty, to connect with love, to connect with wisdom. In fact, if you talk about what is the nature of our minds, what is the nature of our being, because in the Eastern wisdom tradition, mind and heart, it's the same word.
Wow.
In fact, if you would ask somebody in ancient India, point to your mind, they would go like this. Right there.
Wow. Right.
They point to your thoughts. Yeah.
Oh,
This is connected with our body. This is connected with our spirit, our heart.
right.
So if we talk about that, we have to understand that the nature of our consciousness, our awareness, our mind, our spirit. Again, remember I talked about the mind as the formless, sizeless, colorless container of our experience. It's the container of our experience. And that container has two potentialities. It has the potentiality, the potential to know, and the potential to feel. Those two things, cognitive and emotional. The potential to know in its highest human form is wisdom. The potential to feel in its highest human form is love.
Wow.
Now, that means that everybody has that potential of wisdom and love. And you can call that our basic goodness. I didn't say we have the potential for stupidity and hatred. Stupidity and hatred come out of confusion because we're looking for that wisdom and love someplace else.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And because we're looking at it someplace else and can't find it, we feel confused and we feel upset. We feel disappointed. We feel like we're not getting what we want. We feel like other people are, or something is keeping it from us. So
and it's within us the whole time.
It's there the whole time. And because we have that imaginary separation from it, it's a gulf that can't be breached because we're looking in the wrong direction. We're looking out there for happiness when it's in here. And then you go, oh, I can relax. That moment of relaxation, that's basic goodness. Ah, relax.
Right.
Yeah, life is good.
Right.
Uptight,
just a sense of ease.
Uptight, not so much. Life's not so good.
Yeah.
That's right. So when we slow down, and we're speeding so fast, we're chasing after what we think is going to make us happy, and then we start falling. Well, what happens when you start falling? You have to run faster to not lose your balance, and then you you fall more, and you get on this treadmill, and you lose track.
Burnout.
When you step off, at that moment, ease and relaxation is already there.
Yeah.
You can't tell someone to relax. It makes them uptight. Why don't you just relax?
Yeah.
Now you can say, could just stop and take a breath for a moment. And then you find your natural relaxation. That's the basic goodness.
Right.
That reminds me, I want to share something with people. Here's a technique you can use. What do you do when your clothes are on fire?
Do you want me to answer this?
Yeah, your kids are taught this. 3 things.
Okay. When your clothes, the clothes that you're wearing are on fire, stop, drop, and roll. Yeah.
There you go. Stop, drop, and roll.
Right.
You stop what you're doing. Don't try to run away from the fire. Don't try to run towards anything. Just stop there. Drop down to the ground.
Ooh.
Where there's not as much air or wind, not as much wind for the fire, and roll around to put it out. To smother it, right?
Right. Oh.
Well, what happens when your mind is on fire? I have a slogan: stop, drop, and breathe.
Oh, I love it.
Stop what you're doing. Stop the storyline. Stop the mental speed. Just stop. Just time out. Cut that. Drop out of your head and into your body. Feel what your body feels like. and breathe.
Oh, amazing.
By the third breath, things will have calmed down. Now, you can do this through the day by using signals. If you're driving and you pull up to a red light, instead of checking your texts and revving the engine and saying, why can't I? Oh, I wish I hadn't missed that yellow, and I want to go, I want to go, I want to go. Can I beat this other guy next to me? And you're drag racing. Instead, you go, red light, signal, stop, drop, breathe.
Right.
And use it as an opportunity to meditate for anywhere from 5 to 30 seconds, however long that red light is, and then go on your way. I've actually stopped trying to make it through a yellow and say, oh, yellow light, that means that's the signal that it's almost time to meditate.
Wow, I love that.
Pull up to the red light, just relax, breathe, up, time to go, and away we go. Now, what other signals do we have? The sound of a text coming through. Do you have to jump and answer it? No. Use it as a signal. Stop, drop, breathe. The microwave goes off. Take one breath before you reach to take your food out. The phone rings. Take one breath before you answer it. The doorbell. Any kind of signal that happens. Ding, email came through. Do you have to check it instantly? No. Use it as a signal. And they did this in Japan in Zen monasteries. One person is assigned to ring the temple bell at random times during the day. And when the bell goes off, when people hear the bell, they have to stop what they're doing, stand still, drop into their bodies and breathe.
Wow.
1, 2, 3 breaths, whatever the policy is at the monastery, and then they continue on what they're doing.
Oh, so I love that.
You interrupt the speed, and there is your technique for your specific podcast. Slow down.
I was going to say, this might be the most perfect thing that anyone has ever said on the podcast. And literally, it is a technique that you can do, like you said, through different at different signals to slow down, man. So I love that. And thank you for giving that to me and our listeners. And just to add on that, one thing that I try to do, I can't claim that I always do this, but is that sometimes, especially if I have a busy day, every time I leave a door, every time I leave a room, I will just drop in, take a few breaths, feel into my body, and then continue on.
And
so that's just another example of a signal.
You know what's even better?
What's that?
Before you go into a room.
Ooh, yeah.
Before you go in.
I've got it backwards.
Now, no. Because when you leave a room, you go into another one.
It's true. Yeah.
So you are doing it right. But think of it as before picking up the phone to call someone, before walking into a meeting, and I teach this in golf, before walking into a shot. Every time before you walk in to play your shot, breathe it down and feel the ground.
I love it. Yeah. People
have asked me in the last 2 days, I've been asked twice, what's the one tip you would give an average golfer if you only had one tip to give them? And I would say, I've never seen you play, but this will help. You stand behind the ball, and before you walk in to play your shot, take a breath in, all the way in, and breathe it all the way out before you walk forward. And as you're breathing out, breathe it down, feel the ground, and then walk into your shot. But before you pick up the phone to call somebody, ideally before you pick up the phone to answer, before you type an email, before you walk into a room to meet somebody, stop, drop, breathe, and then go ahead.
Oh, I love it. Okay, man. So I don't know how much time do we have left here. I've got a couple more questions I was hoping to ask you, but how much time do we have left with you?
I'm fine.
You're good? Okay. The first one, I'm asking this a little bit selfishly, but my buddies and I, we plan a big scramble golf tournament every year. The 2020 edition of the tournament's coming up tomorrow.
Got it.
And so we're in teams of two. Me and my partner went out on a couple days ago, and I had the worst round probably in 7 years or so. Like I could barely hit the ball.
Understood.
And I'm wondering, Dr. Joe, what advice would you have for me or anyone out there, not even necessarily in golf, but you're coming off a poor performance, you're going back into the office, going back into the golf course, whatever it is. What advice would you have for someone coming off that poor performance?
Well, do you know how a mouse eats an elephant?
No.
One bite at a time. That's how a mouse can a mouse eat an elephant? Sure. One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. So start small. Identify small pieces of what happened. Okay. So you said I had trouble contacting the ball. Make little swings and just focus on watching the club hit the ball. Watch the club hit the ball. And let your body figure out how to do that the best way. Don't think about it. Just feel it. And then make it a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. In business, in communication and relationships, find that one little piece. They say, this could, and I don't like to talk about what went wrong.
Right.
I like to talk about what went right and then what I could have done better. So identify what went right and then say, how can I use that in the areas that could have gone better? Well, you know, what went well was when I asked a question rather than assuming something about the person.
Right.
So maybe I should be aware, and you know how you spell assume? It makes an ass of you and me. ASS.
Amazing.
You.
I never noticed that.
ME. Okay? That's how you spell assume. It's an ass of you. So you say, okay, I went in with some assumptions. I went in with my stories about them.
Right.
And so what I need to do is make it a policy to seek first to understand and then to be understood. You see? So that's a way of transforming the poor performance into a good performance by identifying what went well and then using that. Now, maybe in that round that you had the bad round, you rolled some good putts.
Right.
Okay. So what did I do when I was putting that I could use for my chipping, for my pitching, for my full shots that went well? Well, you know, with the putting, I just tried to put a good roll on the ball.
Right.
Maybe on my other shots, I should not worry about so much how it's going to turn out as how I get it started.
Yeah.
Okay. So you see, you use what you did well, and I do that in my lessons. I find out what the player did well, and then I try to apply that principle to the rest of their game. You can do that in your relationships. You can do that in business.
I love that. So you're suggesting to look at what went well, because obviously always something will probably went well. It's not all bad.
You probably whitewash the whole rest and say, oh, you didn't do every shot wasn't terrible.
Right.
And you go, oh, you know what? The one shot in the round that I played well, I wasn't so worried about how it was going to turn out. I was just really enjoying the feel of the club in my hands. Oh, you know what? The one shot that I hit well, I wasn't trying to kill the ball. Oh, I think I was doing that. I was trying to kill it on every other swing. You see? So you can figure it out that way.
Oh, amazing. Okay, great advice, not only for me going into this big matchup tomorrow, but also for anyone struggling with relationships, struggling with whatever it might be out there.
For your match tomorrow,
I
want you to give yourself room.
Okay.
Which means room to play, which means if you've got a club in your hand and you see trouble out where that club is likely to land, don't hit it. Turn it into 2 shots. Because if you don't turn it into 2 shots, you might end up turning it into 3 or 4. See, if you have a driver in your hand and the fairway tightens up as you go out there and you hit it in the woods, you might even lose your ball. You might, and it's going to take a long time. Whereas if you hit like one of those hybrid clubs to a nice wide part of the fairway, and then you
Right.
hit your next one up short of the green and chip and pitch it on,
Right.
that's only 3. Otherwise, it might take you 5 to get there. So,
That is very good advice.
accept that you don't have to push it. You don't have to push it. Give yourself a break.
Give myself space. The room is what you say. Okay. Okay, I'll take that advice into this matchup tomorrow. I'll let you know how it goes and if we come out victorious. And even if we don't, maybe I'll just let you know the effects of that mindset.
And breathe. Do the breathing
okay.
before every shot. Stand behind the ball. Take a breath in. Let it all the way out.
Right.
Stop,
drop, and breathe.
Feel the ground. Yes. Stop, drop, breathe. Feel the ground. And then just think, send it to the target. Don't think hit at the ball. That's in Zen Golf too. I'm sending this to the target.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you for that advice. Okay, Dr. Joe, just being conscious of time, the final question, a question I ask all guests, and that question is, if you could tell the version of yourself who is at the lowest point of your life, also known as rock bottom, one thing, what would that thing be?
Well, I tried to think about that. And I think that I've trained myself so much of thinking about positives that I had a hard time finding something.
Wow. Amazing.
And, out on the golf course, I remember the good shots more than I remember the not so good shots.
Right.
So I've really trained myself in that positive. So I have a hard time, but I think that it would probably have been maybe when a relationship wasn't working out, and I felt like I had done everything wrong, and I wish that I could go back into the past and start over. And what I would tell myself would be to say, okay, stop the storylines, stop the recurrent storylines, and just say, okay, learn. You can't undo the past, but you can learn from it. However, once you've learned from it, let it go. The metaphor in the Buddhist tradition is you have a raft that takes you across a river. The raft is important. You need that raft to get across. But to carry that raft with you on land as you continue your journey is only a burden. So learn from what happened and then let it go.
Wow.
So I would say, don't feel bad about yourself for the mistakes that you made. Understand that you did your best at the time. You didn't try to cause somebody else a problem, and you didn't try to cause yourself a problem.
Right.
And give yourself a break and say, what can I learn from this? And what can I do to make a stronger intention to not go down the same path again?
Wow. Okay. That's beautiful, beautiful advice for anyone out there who's going through a tough time as we speak. And I just want to circle back very quickly to one thing.
One other thing.
Sure.
Everything changes.
Everything changes. Nothing's permanent.
This too shall pass.
Oh, love it. Yeah. I just want to circle back very quickly to one thing you said that stood out to me. You said you had a hard time thinking of those tough times. You remember, you've trained your mind to be so positive, you can't even remember the bad experiences you've been through. I find that very interesting because very recently I heard that, I don't remember the exact stats or anything, but it was something along the lines of most people feel negative experiences like 10 times more powerfully than positive experiences. So to see living proof that you can reverse what happens to most people through resetting your mindset, going through a lot of the practices that you teach in your books, is just a really powerful real life example.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Joe, where can we go? Where can our listeners go to follow you, connect with you? I know you have free Zoom guided mindfulness sessions as well. You post some of them on your YouTube channel. So anyways, if you just want to give us an idea of where we can find out more about you and connect with you.
I think the simplest thing is my website is my name, DrJoeParent, drjoeparent.com. My YouTube channel, Dr. Joe Parent. So those two should cover you. I also have a golf website, which is Zen, there it is, ZenGolf.com.
Zen Golf, okay.
ZenGolf.com. And you can also see my author page on Amazon. I'm very excited about my latest book, which has nothing to do with golf.
Right.
The Disney company asked my sister and me to write a book using Winnie the Pooh and characters to teach mindfulness and kindness and appreciation of nature,
right,
and each other. So it's called A Walk in the Wood, meaning the 100-acre wood, A Walk in the Wood, Meditations on Mindfulness with a Bear Named Pooh. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
And I'll see if this will come.
Oh, you've got it right there. Perfect.
Oh, let's see if we can get it to show up on the on the Zoom. There
we go. There we go. A Walk in the Wood. Okay.
And my wife is a graphic designer for Disney, and she designed the cover and the interior.
That's awesome.
And again, you can see all of my books on my website, drjoeparent.com. So it's hard for me to just keep saying my name over again, but easier for people to find. And really, everything that I've been able to share, I have to say that it's something that I got from my great teachers, and I owe it all to them. If I made a mistake, it's mine. The wisdom is theirs.
Credit where credit is due. I love it. All right, man. Well, thank you so much once again for doing this. This has been valuable for myself, not only my golf game, but just as a person as well for, I hope, all of our listeners.
My pleasure.
So thanks again.